Queen Victoria rings a bell for most people. She was the queen who reigned through most of the 19th century and who managed to make powerful marriages for her children and grandchildren. As such, she gained herself the nickname Grandmother of Europe, and up until this day, most European royals descend from her. It comes to no surprise that the queen therefore outshined most people around her. One of those persons is her own mother, who today is mostly forgotten to history. In today's video, we will therefore be focusing on Princess Victoria of Saxe-Coburg Saalfeld, the mother of Queen Victoria. Marie-Louise Victoire, as her full name was born on August 17, 1786, as a princess of Saxe-Coburg Saalfeld. Her father was Francis, the Duke of Saxe-Coburg Saalfeld, and her mother was Countess Augusta Reuss of Ebersdorf. She was the 7th out of 10 children her parents had and the youngest surviving daughter. Her siblings included Princess Juliane, who became a Grand Duchess of Russia through her marriage, and the later King Leopold I of the Belgians. Victoria, as she is commonly referred to, was described as an intelligent young beauty. Other than that, not much is known about her childhood. At only 17, she married Emich Karl, the Prince of Leiningen. The wedding took place in Coburg on December 21, 1803. For Emich Karl, it was the second marriage. His first wife, Countess Henrietta Sophie of Reuss-Ebersdorf, was Victoria's aunt. As such, the couple had an age gap of 23 years. Victoria became pregnant almost immediately, as her first son, Karl, was born on September 12, 1804. 3 years later, on December 7, 1807, their daughter Feodora was born. Emich Karl died 10 years into the marriage of pneumonia. Victoria's son as such became the Prince of Leiningen. As Karl was still a minor, Victoria took over as regent of the principality. Her dowry included a summer residence in Amorbach, a winter residence in Mittenberg, and 20,000 guilders yearly. In 1818, Victoria married Prince Edward, the Duke of Kent and Strathearn, British King George III's fourth son. It was her brother Leopold who helped arrange the marriage. You see, Leopold had been married to George III's only legitimate granddaughter, Princess Charlotte of Wales. Charlotte, however, died tragically during childbirth in late 1817. This prompted a succession crisis in the United Kingdom, as George III's 15 children had not managed to produce legitimate heirs. As such, the king's sons rushed into marriage in hopes to father an heir. The wedding took place on May 29, 1818 in Amorbach, Germany, and on July 11, a joint ceremony took place at Kew Palace. At the same time, Edward's brother William married Adelaide of Saxe-Meiningen. The newlywed couple moved to Germany, where the costs of living were cheaper. When it became clear that Victoria was pregnant, the couple rushed back to England so their child could be born on English soil. They arrived in Dover on April 23, 1819, and settled at Kensington Palace. A month later, their only child was born, Princess Alexandrina Victoria of Kent. Prince Edward died only 8 months later on January 23, 1820, of pneumonia. 6 days later, King George III died and was succeeded by his eldest son. At this point, the British succession was far from assured, and there was a chance that the younger Victoria could one day become queen. As such, the widowed Victoria decided to remain in England, although she spoke no English and could have lived comfortably in her palace back in Germany. In England, the Duchess and her young daughter lived rather poorly. She had inherited her second husband's debts and relied on the British government. However, Parliament was reluctant to support impoverished royalty. The provisions she and her daughter were granted were mean. The two resided in rooms in the dilapidated Kensington Palace and received little financial support. Most of her income was therefore provided by her brother Leopold. In 1831, George IV died and his younger brother succeeded to the throne. The new king, William IV, was in his 60s and his wife, Queen Adelaide, was nearly 40. It was therefore not expected that he would have legitimate children. The young Princess Victoria therefore became the heir presumptive to the British throne. This status led to an increase in their income. During her time in England, the Duchess Victoria developed a close relationship with John Conroy, a British Army officer. Conroy became her comptroller and secretary. During the same time, the Kensington system was brought to life. These were strict rules which the Duchess created in order to make the young Princess Victoria dependent on her mother and John Conroy. The young girl therefore grew up isolated, and the Duchess and Conroy became deeply unpopular at court. In addition, Victoria, as far as she could, prevented King William IV from seeing his niece and heir. In 1831, the Duchess Victoria was declared the sole regent in the case that the younger Victoria would come to the throne as a minor. At his birthday banquet in 1836, William IV expressed his wish to live until his niece Victoria was 18 so that the Duchess would never act as regent. He said, "I trust to God that my life may be spared for 9 months longer. I should then have the satisfaction of leaving the exercise of the royal authority to the personal authority of that young lady, heiress presumptive to the crown, and not in the hands of a person now near me, who is surrounded by evil advisers and is herself incompetent to act with propriety in the situation in which she would be placed." The Duchess's close advisor, John Conroy, had high hopes that she would act as a regent. In this case, he, as her personal secretary, would be the real power behind the throne. As her 18th birthday came closer, Conroy tried to pressure the young princess into signing an agreement making him her personal secretary when she succeeded to the throne. This would cause a rift between the Duchess and her daughter. The younger Victoria came to the throne on June 20th, 1837, just 1 month after her 18th birthday. One of her first tasks as a queen was to remove her mother from her room into separate accommodations. The two women would have a distant relationship for the next few years. It was only in 1840, with the birth of Queen Victoria's first child, also named Victoria, that the Duchess was allowed back into her daughter's inner circle. Perhaps it was the Queen's husband, Prince Albert, who happened to be the Duchess's nephew, who persuaded her to reconcile with her mother. The Duchess became a doting grandmother, and she was closer than ever to her own daughter. The Duchess died on March 16, 1861, at the age of 74. Victoria was by her side and was devastated by the death of her mother. She read through her mother's papers and learned that she had loved her deeply. She was buried 9 days later in the royal vault of St. George's Chapel. In August of that same year, her body was transferred to the Duchesses of Kent mausoleum at Frogmore.